The West has a sleep crisis, and yet the problem gets worse every year. Japan has a different relationship with sleep, not a better one in every dimension. Japan has its own well-documented sleep challenges, particularly in work culture. But Japan has something the West is only beginning to rediscover: the understanding that sleep is not a single event. 1. Inemuri, the art of sleeping in public. If you ride the Tokyo subway during commuting hours, you will see something that stops Western visitors immediately: people sleeping on trains, in waiting rooms, at their desks, occasionally in meetings, not hiding it, not apologizing for it. This is Inemuri. Literally translated, being present while sleeping. The Western interpretation is usually that this is exhaustion, evidence of Japan's notorious overwork culture demanding more than human biology can sustain. That interpretation is partly correct, but misses something important. Inemuri is not the same as passing out from exhaustion. It is a culturally sanctioned practice of brief rest taken at the moment the body requests it, in whatever environment you happen to be in. A Japanese person sleeping briefly on a train is not being rude to fellow passengers. They are not demonstrating weakness or poor discipline. They are responding to a biological signal with the most efficient available solution. The West has no equivalent practice and no cultural permission for it. We are expected to be visibly alert at all times in any social or professional context. The cost of that expectation, caffeine dependency, afternoon cognitive collapse, chronic baseline fatigue, is paid every day by hundreds of millions of people who have no acceptable alternative. 2. The science behind. Brief rest. The human body has a natural energy dip approximately 7 to 8 hours after waking. This is not a cultural construct. It is a biological rhythm present across virtually every human population, regardless of geography or lifestyle. The Spanish siesta, the Mediterranean afternoon break, Inemuri. These are not different cultures independently developing the same indulgence. They are different cultures independently recognizing the same biological reality and building social permission around it. Research on brief rest periods, naps of 10 to 20 minutes taken during the afternoon dip, consistently shows measurable improvements in alertness, reaction time, mood, and cognitive performance for the subsequent 3 to 4 hours. The improvement is not subtle. Studies comparing afternoon performance in rested versus non-rested subjects show differences equivalent to several hours of additional sleep the previous night. The West responds to the afternoon energy dip with caffeine. Caffeine suppresses the signal without addressing the underlying need, delays the fatigue rather than resolving it, and creates a secondary crash several hours later that disrupts evening wind down and sleep onset. Japan responds to the afternoon energy dip with 10 minutes of Inemuri. One approach treats the body as a machine that needs fuel to override its signals. The other treats the body as a system whose signals are worth listening to. 3. Sleeping with the seasons. Traditional Japanese sleep culture is organized around natural light in a way that modern Western sleep has almost entirely abandoned. Sleep follows darkness. Waking follows light. In winter, when darkness comes early and morning light arrives late, sleep patterns shift accordingly. Earlier nights, later mornings, more total sleep. In summer, the reverse. This seasonal variation in sleep timing is not laziness or lack of discipline. It is biological responsiveness to the environmental cues that governed human sleep for hundreds of thousands of years before artificial lighting made them optional. Modern Western sleep culture treats the same bedtime and wake time as the goal, regardless of season, regardless of natural light, regardless of what the body is signaling. The alarm goes off at 6 a.m. in December darkness and 6 a.m. in June brightness, and the expectation is identical performance from a biological system that was never designed for that consistency. Japanese homes traditionally maximize this seasonal responsiveness. Shoji screens that diffuse morning light gradually into rooms rather than blocking it entirely. The practice of opening windows at first light. Evening routines that wind down with the diminishing light rather than artificially extending the day with screens until midnight. None of this requires renovation or discipline. It requires treating natural light as a sleep tool rather than something to manage. 4. The ofuro, as sleep preparation. The traditional Japanese bath. The ofuro is not primarily a cleaning tool. Cleaning happens before the bath. The ofuro is purely for soaking. Deep immersion up to the shoulders in water, kept at a consistent temperature of around 40 to 41 degrees Celsius. Taken in the evening, typically 1 to 2 hours before sleep, the ofuro produces a specific physiological response that Western sleep science has only recently begun to study seriously. Immersion in warm water raises core body temperature. When you exit the bath, core temperature drops rapidly. That temperature drop signals the brain to increase melatonin production and decrease alertness, the same physiological state that naturally precedes sleep onset. The ofuro is, in the language of sleep science, a perfectly calibrated sleep onset intervention. Warm immersion followed by cooling produces the temperature curve the brain reads as bedtime, regardless of what the clock says. Western shower culture, quick, often in the morning, functional, produces none of this. The bath as relaxation tool exists in Western culture, but not as a daily evening ritual with understood sleep preparation function. The Japanese don't take evening baths because they read sleep research. They take them because the practice, developed across centuries, produces an outcome the culture recognized as valuable long before the mechanism was understood. 5. What Japanese sleep culture gets right. Japanese sleep culture is not without problems. The demands of Japanese work culture produce genuine sleep deprivation in a significant portion of the working population. Inemuri exists partly because the alternative is people who cannot function. But underneath the cultural pressures, the traditional practices encode something important. Sleep is responsive, not rigid. The body has signals, and those signals are worth following. With a brief rest when tired, with an earlier night when the season demands it, with a warm bath when the day needs a punctuation mark before it ends. The West has medicalized sleep. We have sleep hygiene protocols, sleep tracking devices, sleep supplements, sleep clinics. We approach sleep as a problem to be solved, rather than a biological process to be supported. Japan's traditional approach treats sleep as part of a daily rhythm. continuous, responsive, maintained through ordinary practices that prepare the body for rest rather than forcing rest upon a body that hasn't been prepared. The difference in how you feel when you wake up is the difference between a body that was given what it needed and one that was simply switched off and switched back on again. You already know what it feels like to wake up actually rested. It probably doesn't happen as often as it should. The practices that produce it aren't complicated. An evening bath, a window open to morning light, 10 minutes of rest when the afternoon asks for it. Small adjustments to how you treat sleep, not as a block of unconsciousness to be optimized, but as a daily conversation between you and your biology. That's it. If this gave you something useful, subscribe. Every week, we look at what Japan does differently and why it works. See you next week.